Welcome back to Angels and Side Quests, where faith meets the missions you didn't sign up for. I'm your host, Angela Crystal. Today, I want to talk about something deceptively simple. 3 words we say all the time, often without realizing how heavy they really are. God is able. Not you, not your strength, not your consistency, not your faith performance. God is able. And that distinction matters more than we think. There is a quiet pressure in spaces of faith that nobody really names. The pressure to be strong, to be confident, to be spiritually impressive, to always sound like you're doing better than you are. And somewhere in that pressure, we subtly shift the weight of faith from God's ability to our own. We don't say it out loud, but we live like it. If I pray enough, if I believe enough, if I don't mess this up. But Scripture doesn't say you are able. It says God is able. During my divorce, I was very aware of my limits. I was tired, emotionally worn down, spiritually stretched thin. I didn't feel powerful, brave, or like a strong believer. And I remember thinking, if God needs me to be strong right now, we're in trouble. I didn't really have any faith left. I had survival with faith sprinkled on top. And God honored that. And that's when He showed me that my inability was not a problem. It was the point. Because if I could do it all myself, I wouldn't need Him. There's a verse in Romans that says that Abraham did not waver through unbelief regarding the promise of God, but was strengthened in his faith, being fully persuaded that God had the power to do what He had promised. Not that Abraham had the power, that God did. Faith wasn't Abraham's strength. Faith was Abraham's trust. And that's a relief. One of the things angels taught me early on is that God doesn't always send answers. Sometimes He sends reassurance. And if you've read my book, The Angels Are Talking, you'll know that there is a group of angels whose job is to reassure. There were moments when I didn't get clarity. I didn't get timelines. I didn't get explanations. But after I got out of my own way, I got peace, steadiness. I got a sense of you're not alone in this. And that's what God does when He's able and you're not. People often ask me how I got to the point where God was telling me that He had found favor with me because of my faith. I still don't think I've fully grasped what that means. But part of it comes from my parents. And I suppose big faith parents begat big faith kids. My parents never limited God in any way. So I grew up with the freedom to see Him as bigger than anything I could imagine. They shared so many miracles, signs, and wonders, and visions with me over the years. Here's my favorite one. They were a young, newly saved couple with small kids, and they just didn't have the money for groceries. My mom, Carolyn, looked at my dad and said, "Keith, what are we going to do?" My dad very calmly and assuredly said, "We're going to set the table, read our Bibles, and trust that God will provide." They did just that. And before long, there was a knock at the door. Standing there was my uncle and his wife with multiple bags of groceries. My uncle said something like, "God led us to bring you guys some food." My parents were in absolute shock and just thanked my uncle multiple times, offering him entrance into their house. But they said they were in a rush and left right away. Later that night, my mom called my uncle to thank him one more time for bringing the groceries. She gets my uncle on the phone and he says, "What groceries?" She said, "The groceries you brought over tonight." "Boy, stop playing." He said, "I have not been to your house tonight." Again, my mom said, "You were just here. What do you mean?" And again, he said, "Baby sister, I would not lie to you. I have not been to your house." That happened over 40 years ago. And to this day, my uncle, who is a preacher and not a liar, still denies delivering groceries to their house. In fact, he once told my mom, "We couldn't have brought you groceries because we needed some ourselves." This is the crux of faith and letting God be God in our lives. God sent angels to my parents' house with groceries because their faith was that great. He wants to show us so much, but our faith needs to be great to see miracles that are great. One of the hardest spiritual lessons is letting God be the hero of the story. We want credit, we want agency, we want to feel useful. But God doesn't need us to be impressive. He needs us to be available. When I stopped trying to prove my faith and started trusting His ability, everything got better. If you're listening to this and thinking, "I don't have the strength, I don't know what I'm doing, barely holding on," that doesn't disqualify you. It qualifies you very much because God's ability shines brightest when ours runs out. You don't have to be fearless. You don't have to be certain. You don't have to have it together. You just have to stop pretending that this all depends on you. Here's something simple you can try this week. Instead of saying, "I need to be stronger," try saying, "God, you are able." Not as a mantra, not as performance, as permission. permission to rest, to exhale, and to be human. God is able when you're tired. God is able when you're unsure. God is able when your faith feels small and your problems feel gigantic. Put what troubles you in His hands and let the Creator of everything fix it. This has been Angels and Side Quests, where faith meets the missions you didn't sign up for. I'm Angela Crystal. And if all you can do right now is show up and breathe, that's enough. Because God is able.